Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Network. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I am your host. Today, we are talking about IoT and smart cities with John Squillace, who is the CEO of Helix Wireless, and Trino Pedraza, who's the Public Works Director for the city of Galveston, Texas. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Hey.
It's my pleasure. Say those names 5 times fast, John.
No, I'm not doing it again. No, luckily I walked through that one, John. I was waiting for you to be like, "Yeah, I'm going to correct you now," but you didn't. So
I think we did that an episode ago. So
we did, yeah. So, well, hopefully I did it smoothly. So, thank you guys again for joining me. It's exciting to hear different perspectives. I know you, John. I've met you, Trino, for the last couple of months. We've done some podcasts together, but you both are on a similar path of like vision of like smart cities, smart sewer, smart water, those type of things, and connecting devices and making things simpler to have at your fingertips, so to speak, at your office. Trino, you were talking about at one point in time a system to shut off like a water main and stuff like that, like a remote system, like a smart system. Right. So I thought you two would be great to connect and kind of go from there. So we'll get started. So, Trino, what is your vision of what a smart city kind of looks like, and what does that role play in your mind?
So for me, like a smart city is going to be a living, dynamic system that's going to be able to change and grow. It should provide value. It should give us the data we need to make smart decisions, data-driven decisions. There should be components of it that make us more efficient one way or another, whether it's with manpower or whether it's with our operations or the way we treat water or wastewater. It has to bring some type of value, and it has to do it in a manner that is not so labor intensive. And to me, that's just kind of like an overall description, right? Yeah. But ultimately, in order to get that, it requires like the integration of everything, right? So that you get things talking to each other and actually sharing the information that, one product's good at getting where another one isn't. And that's kind of what I see.
Yeah. John, what's your perspective on just smart cities and the role IoT will play?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar, right? I mean, you're talking about things talking to things, right? That's IoT, right?
Right.
That's, we have, there's 1,000 different definitions of what IoT means. The way we boil it down is it's when one thing can talk to another thing without a person coming in and telling it to do it, right? So it's kind of automated kind of communication. When I think about smart cities, I think about all the different things, right? Things like garbage cans, things like manhole covers, things like, traffic lights, walking lights. I mean, all these things, right? They have a need to have a discussion, and you can essentially you can do so much better planning with the data that Trino's talking about, right? It's not just about collecting the data. The really interesting thing to do is manipulate that data and use that data for something other than just going, look, I have all this data now, right? I have all this information and I'm not going to do anything with it. I don't know how, right? So that's where the platform conversation really starts to open up, right? So that's kind of outside of what we do, we do the connectivity, but that always brings us to that next phase of like, now what?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Good points, because analysis paralysis, right? I mean, that's really what happens when you get bombarded with so much data, Trino. I would imagine an asset management system, you get so much information, then how do you prioritize it, right? And that can be a struggle sometimes for your crews and you, I would imagine.
Right. And as a matter of fact, even with the systems that we're installing, it's interesting that you make that statement, because one of our groups, our metering group, recently started to just get bombarded with all kinds of data that they've never had before. And they had spreadsheets with alarms and exceptions and things going on that really should catch our attention. And they were overwhelmed. I mean, they had thousands of things to look at, and they didn't know how to look at it. So they didn't look at it. Right. And so at some point we sat down here recently and we got the gist. No one got in trouble or anything, but I got the gist of what was going on, especially after seeing what they're looking at. So we sat down and said, okay, well, let's put it up in front of us, right? How do you eat an elephant? Let's start
one bite at a time.
this way. Right, exactly. We started looking at the things that were important, what was close to, close proximity to them. And we said, okay, look, just go look at these things today. Forget about the rest. Go look at these things and to see what we see, and it's kind of like that across the board, it's just at various levels, depending on who you're working with.
Yeah, it's good response there with that. How do you see that, John?
I mean, it's a lot of the same, right? So I think we're just started, so we have some time, but I'm going to share a short story about ice cream. So, one of our, that's a true story. This is a true story.
I love John's stories.
So one of our customers, they monitor ice cream coolers, right? And it's IoT, right? Yeah. They're taking data from a cooler and they're telling a distributor or a warehouse, this is what you need to replace, right? And so there's a conversation we had with an organization that's actually not one of my customers, but they're in the ice cream business. Must be a fun business, I guess, right? It's pretty sweet.
It's a big business, I'm sure.
So when you're looking at ice cream, you have a guy who's been in job for 25 years and he's a driver, he's a delivery guy, right? Mm-hmm. Do you want that guy to control your supply chain? You want him to control it? Because he walks in and he goes, well, we're missing the Neapolitan, we're missing the vanilla, we're missing the chocolate, we're missing the strawberry. Let's make sure we get those, right? There's like 10 different special flavors they just made that performed, amazing in these taste tests, right? And they're not selling any. And they go, why am I not selling any of these, right? Well, because this guy's here and he's going on the sheet that he knows, and he knows if he puts this in here, it's going to sell, and he's not going to stake his reputation on, chocolate berry crunch or whatever, flavor that they have back there, right?
Yeah.
And so they wind up doing this study and they find that the delivery drivers are actually controlling their sales because they're not stocking these crazy special flavors that they made, these limited time, type things. And they're just not seeing them in the market. Yeah. Right. So some of that information comes back and you're looking and you're saying, okay, well, here's an image of the cooler, right? You can kind of rebuild this image and you say, okay, well, this should be here, but what's there is vanilla and what's there is French vanilla and what's there is chocolate. And then, Rocky Road or whatever it may be.
Right.
They're not moving these other flavors because they're simply doing what they used to do 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Right. We're in a space now where if you want to have, the Chad ice cream, right? You want to be able to go get the Chad ice cream. You want the Trino flavor. You want to go be able to get that. Everything's personalized. So that's the market that we're in today, right? Is they're trying these companies, CPG companies. But then even to the point of getting deeper into IoT, it's about giving someone an experience, right? Yeah. Walking up to a trash can in New York City and having it be empty enough to put your garbage in it.
Right.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
It's all the same thing, right? Do you want the garbage guy to control, your experience in Times Square? Right. Probably not.
That's a great point. Wow. I didn't even think about those analogies as far as what different ways IoT is going to change our life. I mean, in the future, you think about that. And that was my next question is Trino, what do you think the average citizen, how do you think they're going to benefit as we transition into just smarter processes within public works?
Well, I'll tell you what, the experience is going to be different based on the utility. And then, just their, I guess, that activity to technology. Because if you're in an electric utility, for example, there's a lot more connectivity that happens inside the house and then outside the meter, right? And today people are connecting their Nest thermostats to their meter, to their provider. Messages can go back and forth. The utilities can control with permission, certain set points and give back credits. And that's like one angle of it, right? Mm-hmm. On the water utility side, I think the customers initially won't realize the benefit because it's not necessarily something that they're going to see right away. We are going to be having, faster response times. There will be more resiliency to the system. The quality of our product will be better. Mm-hmm. And these are little things that they might not notice right away unless they were in an area where it was really bad to begin with and it's improved, or they've lost it because of some kind of emergency that went on, some winter storm, some hurricane, whatever.
Yeah. No, good points. Very, very transparent. I think that's kind of where we want to go is, for the average citizen, as more data is collected, maybe we can use that as a transparent method, kind of like the ice cream analogy. Is like now the average citizen can see what the utilities are dealing with, and it becomes more visual, becomes more reality, especially when you're dealing with water main breaks, things like that are happening. We can be more transparent with those type of conversations.
See, and if it's okay, like if we have the time, I can share a quick little story. Well, I hope it's quick. Little story, true story as well. But it just happened. It just literally happened in the last 3 weeks or so, right? And so we found ourselves being hit with extreme usage, unprecedented usage, right? We have extreme heat right now in our area. We're like 100 days over, whatever ungodly temperature, no rain. We have no rain. We've had no rain. And so, people are down here by the beach, since we're on an island. They're down here by the beach and they're enjoying that. So there's a lot of usage, and then there's a lot of irrigation use and whatnot. And what we found was that we were not recovering our water tanks. And we didn't really understand what was going on. We didn't understand if we accidentally gave away capacity that we didn't realize, if we had breaks, what's happening, right? So with a lot of the different technologies we have in place, we were trying to really get down and dirty and see what's happening, right? So on one angle, we have an advanced metering infrastructure system. And in ours, we kind of went all out, and we can talk about bits and pieces a bit later. But on the majority of our meters, one of the components on there is pressure monitoring. And so we're able to actually see the pressure that a customer has, and we can actually benchmark it, trend it, whatnot, right? Our customers have an app where they can see their usage, but they can also see their pressure if they're on one of the meters that have the pressure, right? Wow. So we had customers letting us know, like, hey, my pressure is just not right. And we're able to verify, okay? We're trying to figure out why we can't move water from this point, from this zone to this zone, right? So we're seeing what the pressure is on our elevated storage tanks. We're seeing what the flow going in and out is using our SCADA system. We have different pressure monitors on hydrants throughout the system, giving us feedback. So now we're using the pressure monitors on our meters, customer feedback for those that are actually using their app, a third-party device that's integrated into them, that's giving us a different view, and then our SCADA system. And in using all that, we start going along our transmission main, and we start saying, well, we feel like we're losing our pressure here. Something's got to be wrong, right? And so by using the different systems and doing some quick tests with hydrants and valves, we realize that we come across two valves closed, broken, and then 1/3 valve partially closed. And that led to some work, right? And we got that situated, and we made it through and we're good. But it was through the use of all that technology. And then on top of that, you had GIS and whatnot, which at this point wasn't integrated to any of it. But that's like one of those components where the customers didn't realize, how they were helping us by using their app and at least issuing a complaint, right? And then us reacting and looking at our systems and trying to just bring it all together to troubleshoot. I think in the old days, all that would have happened is everybody would have went and started just checking every kind of valve and scratching their head, and
it never got done.
And that was actually when you were kind of going through the different tools that are in place, different, sensors, modules, and applications. My first thought was, well, damn, like, what would they do 50 years ago, right? 20 years ago? Like, is that just like you're rolling trucks to every single valve that you know where it is, right? And hope that the map is right and not, meandering around, right? So where I live on my property here, we have some utilities that go across the backyard, right? And so is the guy going to go to the right yard? Is he just walking around aimlessly in the backyards of New Jersey, right? Like he's just kind of moseying, right? Is like, what would the process be, back then? And how long would it take you to mitigate that same issue?
Right.
If the customers weren't even giving you an idea of where to look.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So Trino, real quick on that, how many citizens are using that program?
So right now we actually only have like 100 citizens enrolled. Yeah. Right. So luckily the ones that were enrolled or were in the area of problem, all of our citizens have the opportunity to use it, and we're marketing out to our citizens like, hey, go to this website, download this app, plug in your meter, create your account, and every opportunity that we get when people like either call customer service, or if we put a message out like on Facebook and social media, we're also using that platform to do like some sort of push. And if they're not on the device and they're complaining that, well, I didn't see the message. Well, we put it in the newspaper, we put it in Facebook, we put a door hanger out, and we sent it out on our, on our app. Well, I don't have the app. Oh, well, let's get you the app.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're trying to grow it. We just really started trying to market it out to our residents, saying like, hey, this is out there. Come on, start signing up.
Yeah. How's the connect? Like, what do you use for connectivity for that? Is it RF? Like, what is the system you guys use?
So on our side, everything is cellular at this point.
Okay.
On our SCADA platform, most of it is fiber, and where it's not fiber, it's cellular. Our AMI system is 100% cellular. Our pressure monitoring system, or side system, is cellular. We're now using like a leak detection component that will integrate into our advanced metering infrastructure, and that's cellular.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of cellular. So John, can you speak to the connectivity in some of these towns? There's, they want to go to 5G, they want to get fiber, they want to get more connectivity without, losing data, for example. What's that look like nowadays?
Yeah. I mean, so I think Trino's talking about it a little bit too, where I heard cellular, like, 6 times.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, why is that? Well, because you don't have to build a road to get there. You don't have to roll trucks to put a SIM card in. Right. And that's our business, right? That's why we're here, right? We connect everything everywhere, right? That's our tagline. When we look at the proliferation of cellular over, other types of technologies that are out there, it enables you, because they're building the large MNOs, they're building the networks for the pops anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to have coverage in someone's front yard. You're probably going to have better coverage in their front yard than you have in their house anyway, because there's no house in the way, right? Right. So if you're talking about the street level communication, right, it's most likely already there. So, why not use the road that's already been built, right? As in this case, use the road that's well traveled, right? Use that one instead of doing something different. So talking about 5G, I mean, 5G it's powerful, right? It's powerful because you're looking at, lower latency connection, higher throughput. For a lot of these types of devices, you don't really need it, right? Yeah, no. I mean, what's the delta for human processing, right, between 5 milliseconds and 100 milliseconds? Pretty much zero. Right. And that's if the person sits in the terminal and they get the information, they're getting it in almost real time anyway. Right.
Yeah.
So over a 4G connection, which is much more prolific from a network side, you're getting just as good data. Right. So when you talk about lost data, there's pretty good integrity on a 4G network. Security will be higher on a 5G network for sure. There's a lot of things that are better with 5G protocols.
He's got connectivity.
Who is it? Hi, Mom.
That's funny.
I'm on a podcast right now.
Sorry.
It's all right.
You're good. You're good.
I love it. I'm sorry. I can't help myself. So when we look at, 4G, 5G, gone are the days of 3G, 2G, right? Where America, let's talk about America, right? 3G's retired. It doesn't exist anymore, really. 3G was a high latency connection. You're talking about, 500 milliseconds potentially just to establish a connection. 4G is low latency. It's 100, 200 milliseconds. That's near real time for most applications. If you're talking about measuring, when something breaks and you're reporting that back, it's, a 200 millisecond latency is pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
You're still getting broadband speeds, 7, 8, 9, 12, 25 megs downloading, right? 7 megs uploading, something like that. You can transmit. These are bits and bytes. They're tiny little data packets, right? It's not like you're, watching Netflix, using the water valve, meters connection, right? Like that wouldn't really be possible. There's some other things we can do with cellular technology that's like low power. So you think about your cell phone. How many times do you charge your cell phone? Once a day.
Sometimes often because I need a new battery.
Sometimes more than that, right? Sometimes I'm charging my phone in the middle of the day because I'm like, I'm at 30% already. It's crazy, right? When you look at the low power connections, which is like CAT-M or NB-IoT, these things allow us to put a sensor out into the field with a larger battery attached to it that'll last you years, right? And so now you don't have to worry about running power to this cellular connection, right? So essentially, you really could just kind of set it, and forget it for a period of time, come back to it, 36 months or 48 months later and swap the battery out.
Yeah. Sounds like you got a dog and we got phone calls.
Oh, you can hear him? Can you hear him? He's right here.
Yeah. That's funny.
And to me too, like
he doesn't come with the silencer though.
Nah, that's all right.
just piggybacking off of what you were saying. To me, like with cellular, it seems to really lend itself to battery power, and all of the devices I was mentioning are all on battery power, exception of like one, which means then at this point, I'm not having to go out and like run power. I'm not having to run conduit. I'm not having to make any connections and get electricians out. You just have this one device and its lifespan. Some of them are rechargeable. Some of them require you to play with the frequency that you have the data come to you so that you can make it, you can extend its life.
Yeah.
But it really gives you a lot of freedom that didn't exist in my opinion before.
Yeah. Interesting. Sure. What about privacy and security, John? Can you talk more about like that? Is that an issue? Is that a concern that like Trino should be worried about? Just curious.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at privacy and security kind of, overall, it's always something you want to concern yourself with. You don't want to just be putting someone's, personal information out there. The data that you're getting from a water pressure monitor or a flow sensor or a garbage can, while you want it to be secure, it's really more on the platform side, right?
Yeah.
So Trino's folks are working with some kind of, application or system, most likely on a computer or on a phone or a tablet. That's the endpoint you want to secure, right? I don't think there's any Russian secret spies that are, IMSI catching to find out how much water's flowing in Jackson, New Jersey, right? So, and if they are, good for them. It must be very important there right now. But yeah, I don't think from that particular scenario, it's something you always want to be concerned with security. You want to take security seriously,
right?
But what is the data you're transmitting? You're not transmitting account numbers. You're not transmitting, social securities, credit card information. There's no payment information. So the data is not, there's not much you could do with the data outside of also know how good or bad this water system is today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Some safety, I think, in that.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's more on the platform side of it, where the security breach would be, where it's connected to information. Okay. Got it.
Right.
As far as the challenges and looking at two different perspectives, Trino's perspective as a public works director, what are some of your challenges when it comes to these smart city initiatives, you're trying to implement, Trino? Is there any?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, there are several challenges. For one, like when you're bringing in all of these different technologies, there are different groups that need to be involved. It's not necessarily something you could just go at alone. You're going to end up having to, speak with your IT department and convince them of the need, the necessity, and get their buy-in or their involvement. Because if you don't, then you're going to leave yourself open, right? There are components that a lot of us don't know. Like for me, the only reason I know these is because I've made mistakes in like initial installations at different utilities. So like when you're looking at a product, you'll have like the vendor say, oh yeah, I integrate into that software and that software. And you're thinking, oh, cool, right? You plug and play, but no, that they integrate into it. You don't really talk about the fact that, well, now you got to like work with them and add to the contractor, the bid, their cost to integrate. Plus nobody tells you need to go, you assume it's with both, but you got to go to the other applications and then ask them for a cost to integrate, develop an API, whatever, right? And so what happens to a lot of people is they get these systems going and they realize like, we didn't think of this, we didn't think of that. It gets botched. And in the end, like, especially with like a smart meter system, all they do is install the meters and move on. And they let its capabilities just go by the wayside. Other challenges we have is, a lot of our staff is aging and they did things one way, right? Almost like the ice cream story 20 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And so, bringing them into the now requires a lot of effort, a lot of change management, a lot of patience, merging them with different talents that'll help augment their abilities matters, right? So that's a challenge. Going through the whole procurement process, because there's like what you want and then what you could really get based on every roadblock thrown in front of you, right? Yeah. And having the patience like to go through all of that, right? Those are really the real challenges. I think a lot of times people want something and they want to skip some of these steps, and then in doing so they don't get what they really want, therefore it doesn't work the way they envisioned it, right? And so like today I'll go through every step that needs to be gone through, right? But in my first installation, that wasn't me, right? There was all kinds of things that went wrong. And so when I went to a second installation, I already knew like we're not making that mistake again. Made new mistakes the second time, right? So this is like a third time I'm doing it, and it's going pretty well,
Yeah, experience matters.
Yeah, right. So I guess that would be another piece too. Like we need to talk to each other, right? I mean, platforms like what you offer give people like some insight into hearing what we're talking about and maybe even connecting with us. But that's a mistake often made. Like you need to like speak with the different groups and find out what went right, what went wrong, what to avoid, and then take that and do what you will with it. Right.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. John, what's your challenges trying to help cities get into smart, city initiatives?
It's a lot of the same stuff, right? I mean, Trino's talking and I'm like, yeah, I get that. Right. I get that, and not to say that it's incredibly difficult from an idea, but the execution of it is political in nature.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing we hear, quite frequently as well. We have a relationship with this person, so we're going to do it there. And what'll happen is they wind up calling you back, but now there's a project that's half done or partly done, or that the process has started, right? And now you're trying to rush to fit into, to air quotations, fix something or to provide some feedback on something that is very difficult to change at that point. Right?
Yeah,
because it's already in process. So one of the things that we're working on is conversations like this. Quite honestly, getting out in the market, having these conversations. Whether you buy my service or not, you go somewhere else. If it ends in a better thing where we're saving water for America, that's a win for us, right? Like, if the end result is a better deployment and a smoother deployment, that's a win for everyone. When we look at government as a whole, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to get in there. The timelines are sometimes a little wacky from an effort standpoint, right? And Chad, I think you're an expert when it comes to government sales, so you know that, right? I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But what we offer is a simple solution, right? It's all the networks in America on a single SIM card.
Yeah,
and it works.
That keeps it Yeah, that keeps it really simple.
Right?
And
No site visits, right? You eliminate cost savings as well, right?
yeah,
So, what'll happen is, someone will go out, they'll pick a network, they'll go out and they'll go, oh, we don't have coverage on this block. And that's where we come in. Right. And it's like, well, had you gone with me in the beginning, we have all the networks that you need, right? It makes it easier, right? And then also it's from an operational standpoint, which I think Trino touched on a little bit. It's really that single bill, that single support call. We ease the transition to technology simply because we are the one hand to shake in that situation where you go, hey, listen, it's working, it's not working, I need this, I need that. We take the lion's share of that effort on. And when you have folks that are not, super tech savvy, us being able to kind of white glove that process becomes really, really important. And it's much easier to get us on the phone than it is a large carrier. No offense intended, just real talk.
Thanks for the real talk. We love real talk here.
Yeah.
Last question, guys. The future of smart cities in your mind, what does it look like, Trino?
Well, to me, it's like I mentioned at the beginning, it's the integration of everything. It's being able to let the system create automated business processes, help you make decisions faster, improve efficiencies. That's a system of the future.
Yeah, you're spot on, John.
I can't disagree with that. Right. When we look at the proliferation of technology, license plate readers, right? They reduce crime, right? You talk about water pressure, it increases, the livability of an area, sewer flow monitors, same thing. There's a lot to do that we can do with the existing infrastructure to at least be aware of what is happening so that we can address it strategically as opposed to just, rolling trucks to every water valve when something's not working, right?
Right.
So that's kind of, my vision is really one of integration and simplicity. And that's where I see the biggest benefit coming from.
Sure.
And that's it. People don't want to spend a lot of time trying to do it themselves. They don't want to spend the time, you don't have time, Trino, to sit there and try and put this all together. I mean, you want a lot of it done for you, I would assume. Just get it done, like wrap it up with a bow. And we want a smart water system. We want a smart sewer system. Let's get it done, right? I mean, that's kind of the way I would, imagine you'd want to have it. So very, very good to hear both your sides and what it looks like for smart cities and IoT devices. Is there anything you guys wanted to finish out with?
Hey, so like one thing that does come to mind, like in our system, we've also put down water quality devices in the field that actually takes real live measurements of the quality of the water, chlorine, clarity, all kinds of different things, and we're doing the same on the sewer side. And one interesting note that I think I didn't really focus on until this year, and I think it's important for others, is especially when you're in an area like a water, wastewater, electric utility, and there are compliance components with the EPA and your state regulators that you have to pay attention to, is things that you were not aware of in the past with no technology is now right in front of you. Like you see it, you're no longer ignorant to something that's wrong. Meaning, you got to kind of think about that component as well when you're bringing this out, because now you have to do something about it if you're a responsible leader, right?
That's a whole nother podcast, by the way, for us to talk about, because that's a whole nother world of once you find it and you got all this smart stuff telling you all this information, and now you got to get more money to fix it. You start finding it. You got to find
or you got to notify the public of your findings or something. I mean, if you found something that was dangerous to some other person and you did nothing, you can't hide this time because it's on your computer.
It's there.
You have a duty to act. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. That's very interesting perspectives on all this, man. It's been very helpful. Thank you both so much for joining me and giving us the insight on smart cities and IoT. We'll definitely be doing another one, fellas, at some point in time, another smart cities, IoT, something like that. And how we can move forward and get America's infrastructure, up and running because it's not in good shape right now. So we can do more of this and educate people. It's going to help us all. So thank you guys so much. And how can we get a hold of you, John? If anybody's looking, to get a hold of you or Trino, John, go ahead with how they get a hold of you.
855-945-1997. That's the number.
I was like, that's a song right there, bro.
Or helixwireless.co. You go to contact us, and that'll go right to our sales folks or ops people. And if you just want to ask for me, just say I want to talk to John, and they'll get a hold of me for you.
That's it, folks. Everybody gets direct access to John. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
He's gonna be like, thanks. Trino, how can I get a hold of you, man? Yeah.
Hey, so for me, you can reach out to my email address. It's going to be tpedraza@galvestontx.gov, or you can always call me on my desk phone 409-797-3683.
Awesome, fellas. Thank you so much for joining me, and you guys have a great weekend.
Thank you, Chad. Catch you later.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.